Welcome to NASDAQ Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at NASDAQ. Joining me at the market site in Times Square, we have Suchi Ramesh. She's the founder and CEO of Suchi Inc., and we're going to talk about tech continuing to disrupt legacy industries. Suchi, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
At Market Site. Now, Suchi, your next generation supply chain for the apparel industry.
Yes.
Tell us more about that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we're a next generation platform for fashion brands and retailers. So what that means is our backbone is a Suchi Grid. So it is a software that connects the entire supply chain. It provides minute-to-minute data, tracking, analytics for all the participants. And the grid is very intuitive. It's a very modern interface, and it sits on top of a network of freelancers and factories. So today we have about 350 factories in our network, most in North America, but some in Central and South America as well. So through the software and this very powerful network, we actually provide solutions, design, production of clothing, shoes, bags for over 300 brands today, and we have a capacity of over 30 million units.
Before we get into the technology behind it, let's discuss the elephant in the room, and of course that's U.S.-China trade. The rhetoric continues to escalate.
Yes.
How's it going to impact apparel and consumer spending trends?
Yeah, so I mean, look, I think the smartest brands and retailers should be building a portfolio and a supply chain much like any financial portfolio. If you have your entire supply chain sitting in one country or one continent, you're exposing yourself to so many risks. So the macroeconomics aside, I think the brands that will survive tomorrow will hedge their risks and hence diversify their portfolio and their supply chain across the world. And then of course you add the other shift, which is the conscious consumer today. The conscious consumer wants things fast. They want to be able to buy clothing that's made locally. They want it to be sustainable, and they also want variety in design. So combine these two things together, and we're going to see a shift of for creation of a global supply chain that's really local for local, right? And so I think this is really timely. The macroeconomics aside, we have seen executives in these really large companies making decisions about sowing the seeds to having local supply chains. And I think that's not just a trend, it's a permanent shift.
All right, now you're a technologist by trade.
Yes.
Tell us more about your background.
So I'm a software engineer. I did my MBA in software as well, and I was in tech for about 10 years before Suchi Inc. So I started with the Intel Supply Chain Analytics division, and then went on to join 2 different venture-backed tech companies in the B2B enterprise space. So coming into building Suchi Inc., I had a very different perspective, and perhaps both a little bit naive, but also a fresh pair of lens and a fresh pair of eyes, if you would.
All right, now we've seen in a lot of industries that tech is coming in and it really is transforming how legacy industries work. Why haven't some other industries really caught on with how data analytics and supply chain are changing everything about the landscape?
Yes, yeah, I mean, if you look at it outside looking in, I mean, there's really 2 different types of industries in the world we live in today. There's some industries that are really, they're in the 4th or 5th wave of analytics and data. But if you look at mature industries, the apparel supply chain for one, and some other mature legacy industries, a lot of these participants are still on email. They're very technology hesitant. So it's very difficult to go from where they are to jumping on to data and analytics. So it's really a stepwise approach where they need a strategic partner that's really guiding them to having a data strategy and having an opinion on data. And that's really a stepwise. You can't take somebody that is not even on email and expect them to adopt advanced analytics. But so how do you stage them towards getting there? I think that's the solution.
So it sounds like Suchi, that particular platform, can be used for multiple industries.
Yes, it does. And that's the goal ultimately. We want to be able to provide a very simple, intuitive platform that can handhold companies, no matter what stage they're at, to having a data thesis, having a data voice, but really allowing them to do that in a way that makes sense for them. And then, of course, I think we clearly see a path to having the grid and the Suchi Inc. ecosystem really apply to different types of industries.
All right, Suchi, thanks so much for joining us at Market Site.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And thank you for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at NASDAQ.